Well, it looks like the snowstorm is starting. That means it's an indoor baking day. But before we get started, I need to grab my coffee. Yep, this is how I'm going to start my day. Welcome to Real Life on the Homestead. And today, what I plan to do is get you prepared for the holidays. And one of the ways to prepare for the holidays is to get some ready-made pie shells in the freezer. So when you need to make a pie, be it savory or be it sweet, you could just grab a couple of discs out of the freezer, let them thaw, roll them out, and make your pies. It makes it a lot easier. With the holiday baking, you've got pumpkin pie, you've got apple pie, you've got pecan pie, you've got all those pies coming. And then come into the winter months, you have those savory pies like meat pies, chicken pot pie, turkey pot pie. So isn't it a lot easier to put those dishes together when your pie crusts are already ready? Yes, they are. So what I'm going to do is show you a large batch pie crust. I'm going to be using my leaf lard and some butter because that's the fat I like. I do not use seed oils. I do not use Crisco. I do everything from animal products if possible. So, are we ready? Let's get started. I have gone ahead and cleared my scale and some stuff out of the way. My counter is really occupied right now because I have all my baking goods out because I will be making a few videos today since the weather seems to be pretty shitty. I'm going to be indoors. Now, what I like to do to cut my fat into my flour is I use this little gadget. And this I use to usually cut up my ground beef when I'm browning it, but it works so well when I'm adding my fat to the flour. Now, everyone's heard it, and let's explain the, I guess, chemistry, not really chemistry because it's not a chemical reaction, but I guess the reaction of flour and developing its gluten. Everyone says do not overwork your dough, especially when it's pie dough. Correct. However, let's be clear of when not to overwork it. When you're cutting your fat into your flour, you're not developing any gluten. You're just trying to mix the two. And you can do it as long as you want until you have the consistency you want. Now, you can crumble to make little pea-size bits. You can smear the fat where you basically have your fat in your flour and you're smearing it together. Some people do it that technique. But you can keep working it and working it and working it until you're happy with it. The time that you need to stop overworking it is when we start adding in the water. Now the recipe calls for 3 cups of water, but I really feel strongly that you start with 2 and then sprinkle in the rest as you need it, working very gently, because that's when you develop the gluten. You've incorporated the water into a flour and you don't want to make it tough at that point. So what I'm going to do is got my fat as well as my butter. I'm going in with my hands. It is the best way to get everything out of there. And remember, I measured by weight, so I want to have it all in there. I do know that a lot of people like measurements in cups rather than in weight. When you're baking, I really think weight is the way to go. Invest in a small scale. They don't cost much. I'll link one below that's like very inexpensive. Having a kitchen scale will make things a lot more consistent for you. So there you go. I've got it all out of there. I'm going to just blend it in a little bit with my hands. Oh my goodness. It actually feels really good to do this. Well, hello, puppy. Thanks for visiting. And then I'm going to clear the fat off my hands. Should really have an apron on for this today. But I am wearing a white shirt so that I don't look like a mess. There we go. clear my hands a little bit. I'm going in with this tool which cuts. See that? So I'm going to keep working at this. And you know I don't like to extend videos just by showing you what I'm doing when it takes a little while. You're going to come across clumps of fat like that. What you want to end up with is little tiny pieces like this. So it does take a little time, and when I get to the point of I've already cut it in pretty good with the tool, it's time to just like work it with my hands. And I am just going to keep working at this, because if I still have fat pieces that are this big, not done. Just patiently work at it, kind of therapeutic. And I'm going to end up with, I'm just going to grab some out of here. This is what I'm looking for. Little pieces of flour mixed in with fat. So I'm going to be working at this for just a little while because it is a big batch. And I like to take my time so I don't make a mess all over the counter. And then when we're ready to add the water, I will get the video back on. Now, trying to bring you in a little closer, I have finished mixing these up, and as you can see, it's pretty much the size of, you know, little tiny peas. And I do go through with the pastry cutter and just make sure that I haven't missed any. I'd rather ensure that I have mixed everything in really well at this point instead of after the water. You can already see that that will hold together very nicely, and that means it's well incorporated. But if you went to roll this out without water, it wouldn't work. So at this point, I'm pretty happy that I have mixed in all my fat. That's 3 pounds of fat to 5 pounds of flour. I'm going to slowly dump this onto the counter. And this is why I use a butcher block counter. I like to work on it directly. As long as it's clean when you're starting, and then when you're finished, you clean it well. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. Okay, so I am gently pulling out all my mixture. And you need to take your time, otherwise it'll end up all over the floor. But see that? See how clean my bowl is? And this is where I do the double check to make sure that it's all well incorporated. And I am pretty happy with this mixture. I have my little pastry cutter in case I feel like I need to do any extra sections, but this is good. I am being a little meticulous right now because I'd rather mix it in with the fat rather than with the water, remember? And this is looking quite nice. Everywhere I look, it's all incorporated. There's no big clumps of fat anywhere, no dry spots of flour. It is well mixed. Now I create a little tunnel right in the middle there. This is for my water. And the way I could avoid over mixing is I'm going to use a bench scraper. And that way I can mix in with the metal, not with my hands. If you feel like your fat is just getting a little bit too soft and you need to chill it, throw it in the bowl, put it in the fridge for like 20 minutes to half an hour, and you can work your fat again. But it's a pretty cool day, and I started off with cool fat, so I am good. Now, let's get our water. To this well, I'm going to add 2 cups of cold water, ice water. We get our water out of the well, so I just let it run for a little while, and then I add 2 cups. The recipe does call for 3, but wait, reserve that 1 extra cup. We're going to mix this in gently. Why is this a voiceover? Well, let me explain. So my videography skills really demonstrated that I don't have many. I'm a homesteader, but I'm not a videographer. I stopped recording in error. So from the last clip where you see the well, I added exactly 2 cups of water and slowly blended it in using my pastry cutter, cutting into the flour. And then I was waiting to see how wet the dough was before adding any more water. You could add up to 3 cups, but because the weather is so damp outside right now, I didn't end up needing 3 cups. 2 was enough. I then rolled my dough very gently. You're using your hands very gently, and I feel like an ass because the whole idea is to show you. And I stopped recording and I'm not showing you how I'm handling it. So let's look back down here. So after mixing it and being very gentle using my pastry cutter, I rolled everything into a roll. I then divided my roll half, 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 and then down the middle, which gives me 16 pieces. When I weigh out each piece, it should be about 250 grams. If it's not, I take a little bit off. I do like them at about 250, perfect for a 9-inch pie crust. That's 234, so let's just take a little bit more. It doesn't have to be exact, but I take these and I make them into a disc. Again, being pretty gentle. These I will wrap and then place in Ziploc bags in the freezer. Again, feel like an ass because the whole idea was to show you how to work the dough, and I missed that. But if it's a little bit wet, don't worry about it. Just don't overwork it, because when you roll this out, you're going to use some flour on your counter and roll it out. So these here, only 2 cups of water are perfect. And I'm gonna go through and make sure that they're 250 each and wrap them up. So we ended up with 16 of these beautiful pie shells. 16. And I had a little extra. This one was smaller. I'll use this as a top to another pie. It's super simple. I'm sorry that I screwed up and messed up halfway through, but just remember, don't overwork the dough. If it's a little bit sticky, it's not an issue, because when you roll it out, you'll be adding some more flour as you roll it out. I know that it seems like it's time consuming. However, imagine if every time you went to make a pie, you made this mess, you had to do this cleanup, it would be a lot harder. So yes, took me a little bit of time because I was working with so much flour and fat, but now I have 16 pie shells, 16 bottoms, or 8 if you're doing bottom and top. This is a great way to save yourself some time. These bake up beautifully. And if you like what I'm doing here, make sure that you like and subscribe, because next I'm going to be putting up a pie, pecan pie, without corn syrup. So make sure that you're subscribed and that video will come up next. But for now, go out, live your best life, and make yourself some pie shells, save yourself a lot of trouble. by doing a big batch. And remember, I will link a smaller batch in the description box in case you're not interested in making 16 pie shells at a time. For now, go out, have a great day, live your best life. We'll see you soon.